Now, let me ask you about your musical side in arts and performing arts. You are a musician, and I'm wondering, going back to the days of your family making the 35 millimeter films, where you just where you began acting, was it around the same time that you became interested in music? Did they give you a guitar and say try this? How did what is your origin in
Yeah,
music?
yeah, interesting. Well, there's a musical gene in the family, okay?
Okay,
Like you get sometimes. I mean, my music partner Stu, who died sadly way too young a couple of years ago. He was the only one in his family who'd ever had a musical thing. And he didn't discover it till he was about 13 or 14. He suddenly started picking guitars up and he realized he was actually a bloody genius. So the gene in my family was my dad's father, who was a very, he was a lovely chap, very religious, very puritanical. He used to kiss you like this because it's rude to kiss with full lips because that's sex. Okay. But granddad had this incredible ability. So he could play it like anything, like a hymn. He could just pick it up by ear, play it. He didn't think about it. I suppose it was a gift from God. My dad's youngest brother Barry was very successful. He's still around. I mean, he was musical director for all sorts of people. He worked with Elton John. He worked with Cliff Richard and all these types. And he was a brilliant orchestrator and arranger. And so there was always that. And I guess I got a little bit of that. That
okay,
gene kind of passed itself into me. But Dad was pretty good at playing the piano. Dad was into musicals. I remember one of the most influential days of my life, and we had classical music playing, okay, a lot. We also had sort of I don't know, sort of fun music, comedy music. Like I
mhm,
said, like Flanders and Swan and stuff like that. There were Mum loved Dvorak. I remember the New World Symphony was something that Dad used on one of the little films we made. It's sort of da 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 da. Lovely, And tunes like that have definitely stayed with me. And I've caught myself sometimes when I'm writing a song, and I'm actually, those ideas are still floating around. They're very influential. The other one,
okay,
because I worked with Stephen Sondheim in Vienna when I was 22 on Little Night Music, but West Side Story, for which Stephen wrote the lyrics, of course. I remember Mum and Dad went to the first night in London of West Side Story. I don't know what age I was, probably about 8 or 9. And I just remember them coming back, and they were so excited. And they bought the vinyl, in the lobby. They bought the vinyl thing and brought it home.
there we go.
Whoa! When I heard that,
Mhm.
fucking heck, that was my real crossover from like folk music and all that, and kind of fun music. Suddenly there was the blues, there was the different beat, da 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 da, and all that, da 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 da. And I'm going like, whoa, this is cool. When you're a jet, you're a jet. It's just such a different world, and that really really turned me on, that album, and it gave me a lot of hope. The only hope I'd had up until then was a Peter, Paul and Mary album, on which Peter, Paul and Mary sang a couple of Bob Dylan songs, including Blowing in the Wind. And so that had given me a bit of hope. But it was
Okay,
really, I suppose my background was in a very, very eclectic mix of music, because Mum and Dad were always, and I used to sing. Dad used to play the piano, and I would sing Gilbert and Sullivan, yeah,
okay.
like the Mikado and stuff like that. And we do the da 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 da. I am so proud if I allow da da da. My brain it teems with endless and all this stuff. So I had an experience of the intricacies of how to write lyrics, how to write melodies, and how to use rhythm to bring that all to fruition. So when I was given a guitar at the age of 12, I, I I left the piano behind. I got
Okay.
up to grade 5, and I can remember. It's hilarious. You know, you could, because you're learning the piano in the classical tradition, and you're learning the top line and you're learning the bottom line. And you don't know what the fuck you're playing. I don't know what I'm playing. What am I playing? Where's the tune? And I can remember hearing things I'd been trying to play, like a bit of Chopin or something. Da, 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 da. I'd hear it on the radio 2 years later and go like, oh, that's what I was trying to play. Because I was being taught all arse around face, you know. So when I got a guitar and I learned a couple of chords, immediately I learned a couple of chords, I was writing songs straight away. Because you know, your voice,
Wow.
yeah, you know, because that's what I've taught kids to do that more recently, like at my daughter's primary school. You know, they'd come, people would say to me, oh, can you help my son with guitar? And I said, well, look, I'm not a teacher. I've just written a
Right.
school song, which I did, you know. And they said, well, and they'd come over, and all I wanted to do was teach them or show them how to write a song. So as soon as they get a couple of chords, you know, then I'd say, well, what happened today at school? You know, something good, something bad, anything? No, nothing. I said, well, come on, something bad must have happened. Yes, Sherelle was really mean to me. I said, there you go. Sherelle was really mean to me today, you know, and off you go. So that I really love that whole sort of vibe of making something, you know, kind of out of nothing.
Okay. You know, I wish you were a teacher because I would love to have you teach me how to write a song.
I'll do
And
it.
you know, well, thank you. And that style of learning where you were talking about with the piano, um, there are multiple ways that people are taught to play the guitar. And some of them are very standard, and then a lot of guitarists are self-taught. Now, with the very standard method of piano being taught to you initially, to where you ended up finding your own better way, uh, the best way for you with the guitar. Did you learn standard also when you picked that up at 13, or did you also move into it with your own style of creativity?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, and that is exactly where. As soon as I learned chords, and I then went back to the piano after a while, and thought, oh, hang on a minute, I can play these guitar chords on the piano. I can play an
Okay.
E minor seventh. I can have a
Okay.
descending. And suddenly I'm going like, this is cool. And also you could hear the Beatles and bands like that were doing similar things. You know, they were not trained pianists, but they were using the usually self-taught abilities on the guitar. And if you're really most interested in writing a song, you want the rhythm, you want the melody, obviously, and you know, with a lyric, there's a whole bunch of stuff to coordinate, and that's why songwriting, I think, is joyful and beautiful. It's also very difficult because you've only got so long to make it, you know, open, and then you intensify it, and then you let it go again, and it's a whole, you know. But when I went back to the piano, and I thought, oh, that's what they were doing. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
going ding dong, bing dang, ding dong. They're just going like,
Right.
there's an A major, there's an E7, you know. And oh, I know what you mean when you say a ninth and an augmented and a diminished. I get it now because I can see it all opened out on the piano. So then I go back to the guitar, and I remember seeing I can't remember his name. I wish I could. A black blues player, talk, you know, who go way back, 20s, 30s, talking about how he played guitar. And he said, man, I play my guitar like a drum. And
So
I
there
thought,
you go.
that's how I play the guitar.
Right. Right.
A lot of the songs I write, I love just, you know, even if you're fudging some of the notes, it doesn't matter because
Mhm.
you know, you're getting a groove. And so I'm self-taught.
Okay.
I picked up loads of tricks from watching people, but my daughter Tallulah is a brilliant I shouldn't say daughter because Tallulah's a they. So my child Tallulah is a wonderful singer songwriter, and they are, yeah. But they have this. Lou's always been very upset. Lou, why didn't you do it like this? And they say, I do it my way. I'm doing it my way. And I'm thinking, that's
Right.
my child.
It's
That's my
there you
child.
go.
Because you're being stubborn and you're going like, okay, I fucked it up. I've made a mistake. It's all wrong, and I don't care. That's how Keith Richards has written all those brilliant Rolling Stones songs. You know, he just takes the bloody low E string off the guitar, you know, because he wants to play in D. So I go, how can I play in D when I've got an E at the bottom? Just take it off.
Very, very interesting. So your child actually did they learn directly from you to just do it your own way? Did you teach them that, or did they just kind of defiantly pick it up and say, this is how I'm going to do it?
Yeah, no, that with Tallulah, they definitely have this incredible knack, you know, which I, without wishing
The family gene.
well, yeah, Tallulah's definitely
Yeah.
got the songwriting thing from me. My older daughter Daisy has the most incredible voice, also can write, but Tallulah's the one who's been the workhorse. They've done very similar to what I did. They knuckle down, they make themselves go through the agony of holding chords down, and they work really, really hard. And now they're writing these most brilliant songs, gigging in Manchester. Lou's finished her degree now, and so she's working for the uni, but also getting out there and playing and recording, and they just got it. You know, they got the knack. I don't really have to say anything, although this is typical parent-child relationship. If I were ever to say, are you sure you're doing that right? Or would you like any help? No, I'm fine, thank you. However, occasionally, Lou will come and say, Dad, will you listen to this? You know, so fiercely independent, but I think also very charmingly, very appreciative of the fact that we both have this curse that we can't help. But we can't help. It's just maddening, you know.
Okay, now, while on the subject of family and music, before we started recording earlier, you were telling me a story about your dad and the Beatles and the Beatles album. So your dad was a fan of the Beatles?
Yeah, this is a cool story because Dad was Dad. I always said about Dad, yeah, he was a young dad. You know, he was only like 24 when I was born, and he was. I think if he'd just been that little bit, am I saying older or younger? Older, younger, younger. He would have got rock and roll. You see, and Dad he just was the wrong side of it because his spirit was very rock and roll. You know, real kind of liberal, rebellious sort of guy writing plays about all sorts of fascinating things and very yeah, you know, very a good guy. But he didn't quite understand rock and roll, so he was very much. I remember Songs for Swinging Lovers, the Frank Sinatra EP, was kind of, he loved that, and he loved West Side Story. So West Side Story, like we were just saying, it's a bit rock and roll, but you know, not very rock and roll. So when a band like the Beatles came along, let alone the Rolling Stones or the Swinging Blue Jeans or the frigging, you know, Dad was like, what the fuck's going on? You know, he'd only just rebelled and broken away from his own family, who were very religious and disapproved of him becoming an actor and going to RADA. And suddenly there's another wave coming through. And whoa. So it was like method acting was a problem, you know. Dad went to RADA, won the gold medal, very successful actor when he was young. But it was a kind of traditional thing, you know, it's more your Laurence Olivier world. But it happened so fast. You know, your Albert Finneys and your Harold Pinters and your John Osbornes and all the rest, they were all, and Dad's like, no, it should be like this. Oh, you know, I talk about it in my book, which is a very interesting time, and it must have been very hard for him, and he resisted the Beatles. So bunch of yobs, and he said, you see them on Thank Your Lucky Stars or whatever it was. He goes, prang, 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 because it wasn't Beethoven. I'm going, well, it's not meant to be bloody Beethoven. This is the black music, man. That's where it comes from. It's rhythm. It's a different world. So anyway, the story, yeah. So on the day that I was bought my 12th birthday, I bought a guitar, and I also was given Revolver by the Beatles, beautiful album. Such a great first album to get, because I subsequently bought, of course, everything of theirs. But it was just such an unusual and wonderful piece of work. And we on a Saturday morning, like I was saying, Dad and I were just sort of slouched on the sofa listening to it, and Dad was kind of giving his opinion. Mm-hmm. He quite like Yellow Submarine. I mean, that song pisses me off. I mean, it's okay, it's not Paul McCartney's greatest work. We all, I quite like the Lennon stuff in the background, going, oh yeah, I'm Mr. Bosun or whatever it is. But it's a bit shit. And Eleanor Rigby, of course, is beautiful, and Dad loved that. La 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 la. With the string quartet, it's great, but it's not. I was like, it was Taxman, and is it what's that? She said, I know what it's like to be dead. That's a great song. And then of course you get to the end, and you've got you got this Tomorrow Never Knows. And we got to that point, and Dad said, and I said, I have to be honest, there's something wrong with this bloody record. And we took it back to Spinning Disc independent record shop, and
seriously, you really took it back.
Me and my dad round the corner, Stamford Brook, West London, with Revolver, and my dad went up to the guy. He has a huge beard, real hippie dude, and he said, I think there's something wrong with this last track. And he listened to it. He said, what's wrong with it? He said, well, it doesn't sound right. I mean, and this was John Lennon, changing the way we listen to music. So, as I was intimating earlier, the Beatles got revenge on my dad because he was recording King Lear at the BBC Broadcasting House up in London and playing Edgar very well. And it was a good, illustrious production. And the Beatles simultaneously were recording I Am the Walrus. And they were doing a big long outro, and they were looking for extra bits and pieces to throw in there. And somebody, George Martin or Lennon or someone, just turned on the radio. And that was my dad was going, and my own home feels you can hear him loud, clear as a bell. And now he gets credited on I Am the Walrus. So I go, there you go, Dad. Everything works out in the end. It's like a bloody fairy tale, isn't it? How fantastic. Right. You're a beast.
So he became a fan. And he's credited on the album.
Well, funnily enough, he did. And that was more through, I think, just, he's an open-minded guy. I mean, I think he just had it just threw him a bit, It's just the shock of the new. But I think, I didn't try and get him into Johnny Rotten or, thrash metal. I think I'd have been wasting several lives if I'd attempted that. But he certainly got into the Beatles, and Sgt. Pepper particularly, he grew to really like.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering, I was going to ask you if you're a concert goer, and you made me think of something here. There are several Beatles cover bands. Well, there's actually quite a number of Beatles cover bands, but I think one of them is actually British and tours the US every once in a while. And my wife and I have gone to see them several times. And some of the Beatles songs, covers performed live, are actually terrifying. I mean, you may hear them on an album, but when you can actually feel it going through you in a concert environment, some of those songs are actually quite terrifying. And what I'm
When you
wondering,
say when you say terrifying, you mean because they move you so much?
yet, yes, that's actually the best way of putting it, because terrifying is a little bit too broad of a term. It's scary at how emotionally moving that they are. And it's surprising because, as you know, as a musician, there's a studio recording and then there's a live performance, and they are very, very different, even if they're
This is
extremely close to being the same.
this is extraordinary. You're saying this because we didn't touch on this at all earlier, and because I know Neil Harrison, who founded the Bootleg Beatles, who were and still are, for me, the best Beatles covers band ever. And I saw them at Glastonbury, where they performed songs which, of course, were never gig live.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
so this is exactly, I've said this to people because I'm not a fan of covers bands. Okay, I'm not a fan generally, but I mean, about 3-4 years ago, we supported, I and another guy, we supported a band called the Trembling Wilburys, who were like the Traveling Wilburys, yeah, with that band who was set up with Bob Dylan and George Harrison and all that, and they never got to tour because Roy Orbison died. But they would have toured, yeah. So they're touring stuff that would never otherwise have been seen live, and that I think is a great thing to do. And honestly, Neil Harrison, he was in a show, a West End show, which was called John, George, Paul, Ringo, and Bert, and he did it as a sort of actor musician back in the, I don't know, 70s, 80s. And when the show finished, the band all missed it so much, they decided to, oh, let's do the odd bar mitzvah, let's do the odd wedding, let's, just keep it together. And from that grew this amazing Bootleg Beatles, which I saw them play at Glastonbury. They played the Albert Hall several times. And of course, by this time, they had the budget to be oh God, they had all this. They did Day in the Life in the rain at Glastonbury, with all the cellists, beautiful ladies all. It gets to the end, exactly what you're describing. And I'm going like shivers up my back, like I'm going to die.
Exactly.
I'm going to die of shivers,
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. So, all I'm saying is I think sometimes, well, yeah, to cover songs like that they never gigged, it's just such
that
a
they
cool
never
thing.
played. Exactly.
No.
So no one would ever have experienced them live without these cover bands. And I'll tell you what, some of those songs, I almost had to get up and excuse myself from the theater for a bit, just because of the overwhelming emotion. I use the word terrifying. There's got to be some other word. Shocking is actually another good word there. So aside from Beatles cover bands, are you a concert goer? And that's the last music question I have for you, and then we're going to move on. Do you go out and just do the head banging, partying in crowds of 10,000?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a party animal. I've been to a lot of festivals. I started going again in the 90s. I was playing festivals, of course, as well. I played a couple of, quite big festivals not that long ago, the Lively Bird, Nottingham and stuff, and on quite big stages. I mean, they weren't huge festivals, but they were enough to give you the vibe of like, hey, you got proper foldback, you got a decent sound engineer, and you got people dancing on the grass. So I've always loved that vibe. I went to quite a lot of Glastonbury's in the 90s before the mobile phones took over, the iPhones, and loved it. I went to the first Latitude Festival, which is now a huge thing on the Suffolk coast. So I've seen some amazing people at festivals. And the best thing I enjoy is just to wander. I mean, not to go, I'm going to go and see that. Sometimes you haven't got enough time anyway, because maybe you're only there for a day or 2 days or whatever, depending on other commitments. I just like to get there, do a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of this, and a bit of it, and just go wander. And I remember coming across the band Ride at Glastonbury. I can't remember when it was. Must be more than 20 years ago. and just going, oh, this is okay, you know. And I was on my own, you know. I couldn't find my mates, I couldn't find my family, you know. So I'm just going to go, whoa. I love that. And once you got your tent up, and you found somewhere to have a crap in the morning, most important thing, you know, that's my tree, my tree, bugger off.
Right.
You know, and then one day you see some alien toilet paper. Oh my God, someone's found my shit place.
Yeah. So do you have a preference of being in the crowd or on the stage? Given the choice of the two, or are they just two?
No. I mean, look, I've played a lot of you know, like gigs in London, relatively small. You know, Ronnie Scott's was nice. 12 Bar Club. I mean, but they're not like festivals. No, those 2 or 3 festivals I did not so long ago. Field of Dreams down in wherever that was. No, that's the best. I love it. I mean, yeah. I mean that because then you're yeah. I love it. It's just that was such a cool feeling. However, I also like being part of the crowd. You know, that's fun too. I think the best thing is if you're actually playing, like a lot of bands do, you know, and you play your set, and once it's out of the way, you can just go walk about and have fun and you know, I mean, obviously backstage is all right. I mean, I was backstage a couple of times at Glastonbury. We were in the theatre field, and I found it a bit, I don't know. I thought, I want to get out of here. I want to go and be with the people, you know.
Right. Yeah. And plus it sounds different backstage because acoustically it's not projecting forward to the crowd.
No, exactly. It's totally different. Yeah. I mean, basically, I remember I was filming an episode of Lovejoy on Burr Island with Ian McShane, and I went and set all the tents up with my daughters and my partner Kath, and then I had to leave because I had to go back to film, and I felt so frustrated. You know, I was making this really cool TV show, and I should have been like just really happy, but I just wanted to be. I wanted to be lost. You know. I didn't want to be found. So I set all the tents up. I had to go back, do some filming. Then I had the Sunday off. And I said to the third assistant, I said, look, I'm not going to be needed, am I, tomorrow? And he said, well, I can't say that. He said, it's on your head. And I said, well, between you and me, I'm going back to Glastonbury. You know, and off I went. And I just made the most of the whole day. And it was just so lovely. And then I had to leave again. And as I was driving back, I was crying. You know, you're talking about the emotion you felt, you know, watching some of those unperformed Beatles tracks. And I felt like that. It's just something that gets inside you, you know. And so in that respect, yes, I just love that whole world. You know, you get back to London and you're walking on the pavement. What's this? Bring me the grass.
Now, I want to touch on some of the things that are listed in IMDb that you've been involved in, but I've got one final question for you as far as this section of who is Christopher Guard. Do you happen to have any secret hobbies that very few people or no one knows about? And examples would be something like stamp collecting or skydiving.
Funny you should say that, but no.
Neither one.
I have done some stamp diving. No, but I haven't. No, I do actually though. Again, sorry to keep saying the book. Everyone's got a bloody book, but mine's much better than most people's books.
There you go.
No, mine's completely nuts, and people love it. You know, it's it's good fun. But I did. I mean, the two things I had inherited from my cousins, I inherited ornithology. You know, back in the days when bird watching was not fashionable. Now it's kind of quite cool, you know, to be a bird watcher. But that's what my cousins did, and I was from this Bohemian background, and my mum's sister had married someone much, you know, straighter, and but I found their household more kind of exciting and vibrant and unusual, and than ours, because to most people, our household was like, really cool. But I like going over to Sudbury Town, where they had a budgerigar and guinea pigs in the garden. And Eric was down the bottom, tending his tomato plants. And they had a ping pong table. And it was all very nice and proper, and they were bird watchers. So I used to go bird watching with them. We'd go on these walks, we'd take our sandwiches and I learned all about birds. So I still know all about birds. And that takes us back to that idea of the great thing about birds is you can watch them anywhere, anytime, any place. And they're, and I don't like all this twitching business. Oh my God, there's a spotted white-throated yellow warbler in bloody, Pontypridd. No, fuck that for a laugh. I don't want to get a Pontypridd to see one of those. I'm too busy looking at the house sparrows in my garden because they're having a fight, and I want to know why. That's
all right
much
now.
more
Okay, now let's talk about your book, and then it was now, because it's my understanding that this book actually connected you to Barnaby Eaton Jones, and that it was instrumental leading up to our main topic of discussion today, Children of the Circus. So I know this book is something that you're very passionate about, and I am terribly sorry that I don't have it yet, but I can promise you, now being aware of it, I am ordering it, and it's going to be very interesting for me to read now, knowing you. So and there's also another one with AUK Direct. You performed with Peter Noble in Me and Him and Who by Stephen Wyatt on John Nathan Turner. So I would really love to hear from you on both of these works. Which one should we hit first?
Got which they were now. Yeah, the thing I did about John Nathan Turner. Obviously John produced the original Psychic Circus, as
Right.
we've discussed. And John was a maverick. I knew him as a young AFM. He was always very out there, kind of eccentric, enthusiastic, very camp, and yeah, a doer, a maker, a changer. He made himself very unpopular with a lot of people because he had his own way of doing things. So when he became producer of Doctor Who, and some of this is quite well documented already, eyebrows were raised. His whole office up at Television Centre was, suddenly instead of being grey and brown, it was all like pink and green and purple. He just did things with a certain style. He loved his drink, he loved his cigarettes, and he loved doing things his way. So You, Me and Him is about him and his relationship with his, because he was gay and Gary was his partner, and they often worked together. And they could be very, well, Gary could be quite tricksy. It was interesting playing John because I didn't really want to play him in a very, I don't know, sometimes he could be terribly, darling, like that. I thought, well, I'm not going down that road, because another time he'd be just getting on with the job. It was just part of his persona. So I had to work out a way of being John, but respecting his memory as well, because I thought he was a very good professional, and I personally respected the way he worked. I think he had because he wasn't boring. He was never boring. And when he cast The Greatest Show, he just went to people that he wanted. That was what he did. Yeah, I think his threshold of boredom was extremely low, and he liked to be surrounded by people who would keep him amused and entertained, and also who had their hearts in the right place. I think that's an important factor as well. Okay. So I think he's been, sometimes John is unnecessarily. Anyway, look, it's everyone has their own opinion, but that again was Barnaby who invited me to do that. And
Okay.
It was good.
And okay, and folks, what we were just discussing here is the work Me and Who, I'm sorry, Me and Him and Who by Stephen Wyatt, and it's on John Nathan Turner. And Chris acted along with Peter Noble in this release, and that is still available right now from AUK Direct. And Chris, tell us about your book, And Then It Was Now.
Yeah, in the first place, isn't it strange that I titled that book about 2 years ago? And of course, now the Beatles, and now, you know, Then and Now, the Beatles song has been released, obviously, recently.
Yes, that is very
like,
strange.
I'm going like, that is strange.
Right.
But, you know, it doesn't mean the same thing. I mean, to me, And Then It Was Now simply means that we can only ever deal with the present, really. And, you know, so, and you go to like, where did the time go? Well, and then it was now. It's always now. You know, we're here now. You know, an hour ago we were somewhere else. You know, we didn't really know each other, and it's always that way. I just like that turn of phrase. And then it was now. Also, because the way I write the book, I mean, it's not specifically about showbiz. It's not specifically about all these extraordinary people I've worked with. It's about acting. It's about music. It's also about just anything that has rocked my boat. You know, whether it was my mother's psychopathic Jack Russell dog who gets a whole chapter to himself because he was just a nightmare, very, very scary. So although Elizabeth Taylor gets, you know, there's quite a lot of stuff about Liz, like when I was playing the piano for her in her bedroom in the small upright in her bedroom in the Imperial Hotel in Vienna, and she was in bed in a pink negligee with a split in one hand and a glass of champagne in the other. Whether it's about that or whether it's about Jeeves standing on his hands so he can shit up a tree and then a balloon comes out of his ass because he used to bite balloons at birthday parties.
Oh.
I mean, that dog was just, you know, extraordinary. So anything that's been particularly funny or sometimes sad and moving and rather beautiful. You know, I talk about Coverack in Cornwall, where I've been going all my life. I talk about being on that harbour wall just as the sun goes down. And I mean, it makes me feel emotional now. It's just that as long as I know that place is always there and I can go back there. And I really wanted to give it, you know, I painted it, but I wanted to give it, you know, and I read what I've written and I think, well, yeah, look, Chris, you know, it's not an ego thing. What you've done is you've actually said it how it is. You know, you've expressed that, you know, the feeling, the something that's almost beyond words, and that's why a lot of the time I go between a sort of stand-up style to a kind of poetic style to almost journalesque, but it's always trying to be honest and truthful about the you know, the experiences. So it's a jaunt, it's fun, you know, but at the same time, in a way, it's deadly serious because, you know, like I just have tried to find that quintessential thing about how we actually experience our lives and our memories and what we do with them and how we bring them back into our consciousness. Hence, And Then It Was Now. Sorry, I'm getting ever so intellectual. Look, just read the book. It's a hoot.
There you go. Okay, there you go. And we are talking about And Then It Was Now by Christopher Guard. Now, what was your writing process like? Did you just get the typewriter out of the closet, get a blank piece of paper and type And Then It Was Now by Christopher Guard and just start there, or was there more to it?
Well, yeah, look, I mean, I've got the book here, right? Because see, chapter 1 is called, this is an answer to your question. Chapter 1's called What Am I Doing? Okay.
Oh, okay.
So, and I say, I had promised several people, including, I suspect, myself, that I would write down some of my life, the anecdotes, my quips and quarrels, the knee-grazing scrambles, and the tumble-down hills, a kind of memoir. Oh, you really should write all this down. It's so fascinating. You'd make a fortune. And I go on, you know, I suppose I never really felt old enough. although it all began very early for me, and that's the way I get into it.
Okay, beautiful.
So so sometimes it's like stream of consciousness, but it's not. Somebody said it reminded them of James Joyce. I'm going, thank you.
Nice.
And John Betjeman, somebody said, so and I hadn't really thought of it like that, but I suppose it's any attempt to just to find the absolute essence of something, and to try to just, so there's no baggage. It's just what it is, and it goes, come on, come with me. I'm taking you here. I'm taking you there. If you want to come.
Okay. Can you show us the cover again? Yeah, you have the cover of it right there.
Well, this isn't the one you'll get on Amazon, because this was the pre-order. This is the pre-order copy. It's got lots of pictures of me as a kid and working with various people, and yeah. But if you go onto Amazon to get it, it's a different cover now. Because they had some copyright problems with some of these pictures.
Okay. Now, folks, go ahead and take a look at the link down below if you're watching this. Oh,
now that was David Copperfield, front of the Radio Times, and that's me as David. And
wow.
I grew up into Ian McKellen.
Awesome.
Well, yeah. So I just thought you might like to see that.
Yeah, that is super cool. How many people have been on the cover of Radio Times?
How many people?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think Tom Baker.
I've been on the front of the Radio Times 4 times.
You've been on there 4 times. Now, you're obviously familiar with the actor Tom Baker, who played the Fourth Doctor. I don't think he's ever been on a Radio Times cover.
What?
Maybe I'm wrong. Don't quote me on that. It could have been that I just read and fell for a joke that somebody posted on Twitter. But I remember somebody saying recently Tom Baker hasn't been on the cover of Radio Times, and you've been on there 4 times.
I suppose it's possible. That's the only time I was on the front on my own.
Okay.
So I was on the front.
You had the whole cover to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So just me and my kite string. But no, I did one with Geraldine Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin's daughter, of course. We worked together on the show, so that was both of us. And then there was another show of me and Judy Bowker. That was another thing. Oh, and then there was Treasure Island, of course, which I did with Brian Blessed, and we did some. But that wasn't BBC, that was ITV. So I think we were on the front of something together. But who cares?
Well, okay, folks, definitely check out And Then It Was Now by Christopher Guard. If you're listening to this on audio, go to the YouTube original interview. Just type in the timescales, Christopher Guard, and you're going to pull this up. And there's going to be a link to below. And after the time that Mr. Guard has spent with us today, if you've enjoyed or learned anything from it, definitely thank him for his time and check out his works. And you may very well find something that you will love, because I am now ordering And Then It Was Now, and I'm very much looking forward to when it gets here, and I am able to read that.